Hey folks, we're here in Anchorage, Alaska, flying the Leonardo FlytheMaddog X, which was just updated to the 1.5B4903 version, which comes with a number of improvements and as well some new aircraft systems. The most interesting of which is the addition of a new FMS system for the aircraft, the Canadian Marconi CMA-900 and Performance Management System, or PMS. And that's the feature which we're going to be spending our fair amount of time exploring in this flight that we're taking from here in Anchorage, Alaska, about 200 nautical miles north to Fairbanks, Alaska, which is located in the Alaskan interior. So as you can see, I'm flying the MD-88 here in the new Alaska Airlines livery that was launched in the year 2016. And as you know, the MD-80, that while it was in Alaska's fleet, never got the chance to sport this livery since it was retired by Alaska in 2008. While the MD-80 was in Alaska's fleet, though, it was a real mainstay of their fleet along with the 737 Classic. And it actually allowed Alaska to open up its first international routes to places like Mexico and, believe it or not, even to Russia across the Bering Strait for a while. So I think this livery looks fantastic on the MD-80. So anyway, let's go ahead and hop in the airplane here. Okay, we're here in the flight deck. So as you can see, the Honeywell system is no longer there, and now we have instead two displays and inputs here.
Hi, Captain. Are you ready to start the boarding?
Yes.
All right.
So firstly, up here we've got the CMA-900 system, and this system here actually provides our lateral guidance. And down here we've got our performance management system, or PMS, which provides vertical guidance. Sort of like VNAV, but a lot less sophisticated, to be honest, than the VNAV capability that came with the Honeywell FMS. And another difference, of course, is if we go up here to our remote control panel, we see that the VNAV button has actually been replaced by a PERF button, and that comes with some interesting quirks, as you're going to see during the flight. As with all things MD-80, of course, the performance management system is a very, very goofy and quirky system to use, and we're going to see a little bit of that as we head up to Fairbanks here. Okay, let's go ahead and start initializing the CMA-900 up here. Okay, first we're going to go to our, actually we're going to look at our ident page up here first. AIRAC data cycle 1911, that's correct. It is active for the current date. Then we'll go to Posinet. Check that we have the correct GPS position initiated, that's good. Then we'll go to the route page and put in our company route, which is Anchorage to Fairbanks. That's PANC PAFA. Okay, that brings in our company route. We'll go ahead and click on execute. Then we'll go to the next page here. And we still need to initiate our departure and arrival. But first, let's go here to our second FMS and get our ACARS data, like our flight plan and the weather here at Anchorage. Go to the menu button, then go to the ACARS page, AOC, go to pre-flight, and let's put in our data here. Our flight number is Alaska 321 this evening. Scheduled date 2/1. Originating station is Anchorage, Papa Alpha November Charlie, and destination is Fairbanks, Papa Alpha Foxtrot Alpha. Estimated time en route is about 39 minutes. And let's assume we're going to depart in about 20 minutes from now at 0140 Zulu. Whoops, I should have spelled that out fully. 0140. And then we'll put in our airline ID, Alpha Sierra for Alaska Airlines. And then we'll click on Init Request. There we go. And then let's click on flight plan here to request our flight plan data. And I'm also going to request the weather at Anchorage. Departure ATIS, and I'll send that out. Now, another one of the really neat new features that came packaged with the 1.5 version release, official release from Leonardo software, is the ability to send your ACARS messages directly to an external printer that you have connected to your computer. So I have one of these point-of-sale style thermal printers that's connected to my computer, and as these ACARS messages come in, I just have them being directly printed on my thermal printer. So that's really cool. That's a really nice new feature. And you hear that tone there, the ACARS tone, indicating that another message has come in, and that was my flight plan. So I just got that printed out as well. All right. Now let's go back here to FMS1 and go to the departure page, and we'll put in our departure runway, which is runway 33, and our departure SID, which is the Anchorage 9 departure. Okay, let's go back to our legs page. Now I'm going to the Big Lake VOR as our first waypoint on this route, so I'm going to put that in. I'm going to clear that disco there, and then we're going to go to the arrivals page for Fairbanks and put in the Liber 3 arrival, cabin transition. Then we're going to be landing on ILS 2 left, and we'll click on execute. We'll go back to the legs page here, and what I'm going to do is move this, so you see where it says Silax, then vectors back to Silax. I'm just going to move that second Silax, which is the initial fix for ILS 2 left, up to this first one and replace it. So that way on our descent, we're just going to transition directly into the initial approach fix. Execute. Okay, that's all set up there. Then we'll go to init ref here and go to the perf init page, and we're just going to put in our cruise winds here. And the cruise winds that we have, it's 241 at 020. And that should be good for now. Now, although this CMA-900 system actually looks newer in the sense that it's multicolor, you know, so you see the cyan, white, magenta, green, and occasionally you'll see some yellow text as well. Although it's multicolor, believe it or not, it's actually an older FMS system than the Honeywell system that's also available with the Leonardo FlytheMaddog. And as I mentioned, the PMS system that we're now going to start initializing is a lot quirkier and also a lot more sophisticated, or a lot less sophisticated than the Honeywell system. But you know, like all things MD-80, it's quirky, but it works. Okay, first thing we're going to do is click on the STS test button here, just to test that everything on the display works. All right, next thing we're going to do is go to the plan page and put in our gross weight, fuel on board, and trip distance. So gross weight is 137.55. Let's put that in first. And then I'm going to click on the 1 button here to put that into the gross weight selection. And then fuel on board at the moment is 22.25. I'm going to round that down to 22.2 since we're running the APU. And we're going to burn off some fuel before we start the takeoff. And then I'll click on the 2 button here, and then the trip distance is 229 nautical miles, so we'll put that in by clicking on the 3 button. Now the aircraft, or the PMS system, is calculating BOD, which is very similar to TOD. So TOD, of course, stands for, or TOD stands for top of descent. BOD, or BOD, stands for bottom of descent. So what this is doing, the PMS system, as I said, is not very sophisticated. So all it's really going to do is use dead reckoning to calculate and a bottom of descent point and a vertical profile that's associated with reaching that bottom of descent point. Accounting for, you know, the 10,000 foot, 250 knot speed restriction, as well as whatever descent speed about 10,000 feet that you want to put in. And then it uses dead reckoning to calculate where it needs to initiate a descent in order to reach this bottom of descent point. You see there are two arrows here, one pointing down, one pointing up, and the flashing there is telling me to use the slew button to move down a page or move up a page in order to fill in more of the data here that the system needs before it can be fully initialized. So now it's asking me for my cruise altitude, wind component, whether it's a headwind or tailwind component to cruise, and temperature or ISA deviation at the cruising flight level. So I can put in 3 different cruise levels to account for, you know, 2 possible step climbs en route. This is a pretty short flight up to Fairbanks, so we're just going to put in 1 cruise flight level. So I'm going to put in flight level 280. That's our cruising level this evening. And then we're going to put in our wind component at cruise, which is a tailwind component of 13. So we're just going to put in 13 and click on the 2 button. And then lastly, we're going to put in our temperature at cruise, which is minus 53. So you see the keypad here has, of course, your typical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dot and 0 buttons. You also have this strange button here at the bottom right that says LNR WE minus S plus. You got to treat that as a shift key on your keyboard, and what that lets you do is access the secondary buttons on your keypad. So if I click on that equivalent of the shift key, and then I press on 7, you see where it says minus right next to 7 in that key, and now I've put in minus in my entry box up here. So minus 53, and then I click on 3, or in the 3 button there, and now I have my temperature and ISA at cruising flight level 280. And that's more or less it. At this point, my PMS has been initialized, and we don't have to worry about it again until takeoff. And at that point, we'll talk about it further. We are going to be cruising in the flight levels this evening, so I'm going to put in a transponder code that's a bit more appropriate for that situation. That should work. Okay, now I'm going to go on to set everything else up here. Let's take a look at the performance V-speeds here. 135, 138, 147. So I'm going to set my speed bugs accordingly. And I'm going to set my speed selector here to V2 plus 10, which is 157. And our heading selector is set to runway heading 329er for runway 33 at Anchorage. So that's all good there. Flex temp is going to be 43 degrees today. So let's go ahead and put that in.
Passenger boarding is complete, and I've got the load sheet here for you when you're ready.
Thanks.
Have a safe flight.
Okay, 0 fuel weight is 115.3. That's all good there. Go to Takeoff Flex and turn off our ART, of course, because that's what we need to do in order to be able to use Takeoff Flex. And assume temp is going to be 43. There we go. That's all set up for takeoff. Okay, let's go ahead and do our departure brief here. Are you ready for the departure brief?
I'm ready.
Okay, this is going to be a standard left seat takeoff with takeoff flaps 15 degrees and takeoff flex setting of 43 degrees off of runway 33. V1 135, rotate at 138, and V2 147.
Hi, Captain. We're all ready to go in the back now.
Thanks.
All right, and if you need anything else, just let me know.
The weather at Anchorage, winds are calm, clear skies, few clouds 6,500, scattered at 11,000, temperature 02, dew point -1, and then altimeter setting of 2985, which we have set up there. And we are located at Gate Charlie 4 today, and let's review the taxi route here real quick. And we're going to be taxiing to the departure end of runway 33 via Echo, Golf, then Kilo to hold short of 33 for departure. During the departure, for any malfunctions before V1, such as engine failure, fire, loss of control, aircraft unsafe to fly, I'll bring the throttles to idle, call reject to reject the takeoff, apply maximum braking, exit off the runway Fable, and advise ATC. For any malfunctions after V1, we're going to continue the takeoff and treat it as an in-flight emergency. I will handle the controls and advise ATC, and you back me up with the appropriate QRH procedures and checklists. Assuming everything goes to plan, we're going to be departing via the Anchorage 9 departure this evening. And the procedure for departing off of runway 33 is to climb on heading 329er to 600 feet, and then a climbing left turn heading 301. The top altitude for our climb is going to be 4,000 feet on the SID, and we can expect radar vectors to assigned route or depicted fix. For us, that's going to be the Big Lake VOR. And expect further clearance to follow altitude within 10 minutes after departure. And let's review our flight plan here real quick. Once we get to the Big Lake VOR via radar vectors, they're going to proceed direct to Kevin, and then join the Libra 3 arrival into Fairbanks. All right, very cool. Okay, so that's it for our departure brief. Any questions?
No questions.
Pre-start check below the line.
Pre-start check below the line. Covers and pins.
Removed.
Aircraft log and document.
Checked on board.
Altimeters.
2985. Set.
Checked. Fuel, oil, hydraulic quantity.
Checked.
Checked. Zero fuel weight.
Set.
Checked. TRP.
Forward 3 takeoff flex.
Checked. Stabilizer.
Set.
Checked. Flaps. Takeoff selector.
Stowed.
Speed bugs.
Set.
Set. Pre-start check complete.
Sounds like the doors are getting close back there. Let's check. Yep, you can see the cargo doors closing there. And it appears like the main cabin door L1 has been closed as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get ready for pushback here. Before start check.
Before start check. Parking brakes.
Set.
Doors.
Closed.
Closed. Startup and pushback clearance.
Approved.
Approved.
And he's going through his flows here to set us up for pushback.
Before start check completed. Ready for engine start.
I'm going to go ahead and request that they disconnect the GPU.
Sir. You're clear to disconnect. Thanks.
And something we're actually going to try and do in this flight is something that the DC-9s and MD-80s were very capable of doing, and it was perfectly legal under the FAR regulations and under various airport rules for them to do this until actually well into the early 2000s. We're actually going to do a Powerback using reverse thrust. And of course, the DC-9s and the MD-80s are very capable of doing a Powerback compared to aircraft like the 737 or the A320, because the engines are mounted on the fuselage up near the tail, and actually a bit higher than the engines on the 737 or other wing-mounted engine aircraft. So it was relatively safe and easy to do a Powerback when this was permitted back in the day. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and disconnect our jetway here, and then start our engines and do a Powerback. Undock, confirm selection. Okay, there goes the jetway. And we're going to go ahead and start our engines. Start right engine.
Starting right engine. Right start valve open. N2, oil pressure.
Okay, so the engine gauges from top to bottom here are EPR limit, EPR, N1, EGT, N2, and fuel flow. Once N2 hits maximum motoring of 20%, we're going to go fuel on. Fuel on.
Fuel flow. EGT.
You can see fuel flow indicating and EGT coming up as well as the engine starts to burn that fuel.
Right start valve closed.
Start valve closed, so the engine has started up and it's now stabilizing.
Stabilizing. Left start valve open.
And
N2,
he's
oil
starting the
pressure.
left engine already. You can see N2 coming up. Oil pressure indicating as well.
N1.
N1 coming up. And once we hit maximum motoring of 20%, once again, we're going to go fuel levered on.
Fuel on.
Fuel on.
Fuel flow.
Fuel
EGT.
flow indicating and EGT indicating. And N1 is coming up.
Left start valve closed. Stabilizing.
Okay, engine 1 is stabilizing as well, so let's go ahead and check that our generators from both engines are supplying AZ volts to the aircraft. They are, so both left and right engines generators are working perfectly well. Then I'm going to turn on my galley power, and I'm going to move my air conditioning supply to auto. Then I'm going to turn off my APU air and turn off the APU master. And I should have turned on my seat belts earlier, but thankfully we're still at the gate. I didn't have any passengers lurching around during the pushback. But I should have gotten my seat belts on earlier. Okay, I'm going to call for the after start checklist here. So Continental Airlines in their flight manual recommended a minimum wait at the gate for at least 3 minutes after engine start to ensure that the engines were sufficiently warmed up before you started the Powerback procedure. Doing our after start check and our taxi check here should give us enough time to get that out of the way, hopefully. After start check.
After engine start check. Ignition.
Off.
Electrical loads.
Checked.
Checked. Air conditioned supply.
Auto.
Galley power.
On.
Ice protection panel.
Checked.
Pneumatic crossfeed valve levers.
Open.
Open. Flight controls.
Checked.
Hydraulic pumps and pressure. Checked. High and on.
Checked.
Annunciator panel.
Checked.
Ground equipment.
Removed.
All clear signal.
Received.
Flaps, slats.
See the slats and flaps extending there. Clear left side.
Clear on the right.
Taxi check.
Taxi check. Fuel heat.
Not required.
Flaps and slats.
Flaps 15 takeoff.
Checked. Keeper bugs, TRP.
Set and checked.
Takeoff speeds.
Verified.
Verified. Takeoff briefing.
Performed.
Performed. ATC flight guidance system and nav aids.
Set and checked.
Set and checked. FMS.
Pre-flight completed.
Checked. APU air and master switch.
Both off.
Brake pressure and temperature.
Checked.
Checked. Taxi check completed.
Now, as we're waiting for this 3 minutes to count down here, actually one thing I could have shown you earlier during our flight controls check is something that's kind of very cool about the DC-9 family of aircraft,
Yes.
which the extended family, of course, includes the MD-80 and the
Galley and
MD-90
cabin are secured.
and the Boeing 717, which is really the MD-95 until Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas Aircraft Company. Thanks. So, when I move my control column, or my yoke here, up, down, left, right, what I'm really doing is controlling these little trim tabs that are located on the elevator and the ailerons. And in the case of ailerons, of course, the hydraulics also operate some spoilers. So if I go full left, you'll see spoiler deployed showing on our annunciator panel. Same thing if I go full right. And there is a little bit of hydraulic power available for the elevator as well. So if I go up and down, you'll see elevator power on shown. But the trim tabs are how you exert primary control over my ailerons and my elevators on the MD-80. So let me show you this here on the aircraft. I'm going to zoom in here. So let's look at the elevator first. If I go up on my, or if I pull back on my yoke to pitch the airplane up, you'll see the trim tab actually moving down. And if I go down on my yoke to pitch the airplane's nose down, you see the trim tab going up. The trim tab is like an elevator on your elevator. It's like that old exhibit joke, right? Yo, dog, we heard you like elevators. So we've put an elevator on you. Well, you know where this is going. Same thing on the aileron here. You'll notice, of course, the spoiler being deployed there if I have full deflection of my yoke. But if I zoom in here on our aileron, you'll notice there's this little tab there. And that tab is basically an aileron on our aileron. And if the tab moves down, it allows the aileron in turn to move up. And that allows the airplane to start banking to the right. And if I go full left on my yoke, the tab moves up, which pushes the aileron down, and that allows the airplane to bank to the left. Of course, this is completely dependent on aerodynamic pressure and speed building up once you take off and actually get airborne. So MD-80 pilots do notice this. The controls become noticeably sluggish as you slow to landing speeds and notably more responsive as you go faster. So that's pretty cool. You can lose all hydraulic power, all electric power. You can literally turn the damn battery off, and you can still fly the airplane perfectly well, because all you need is the trim tabs and sufficient airflow over the wings and the trim tabs to be able to bank the airplane and pitch up and pitch down. Okay, anyway, I think we're well past our 3 minutes here, and I've been droning on long enough. Let's go ahead and do our powerback procedure here. We're slowly going to start getting in some reverse thrust here until the airplane starts moving back. So reversers are unlocked, and I'm going to start applying some reverse thrust to get moving. Switch to our external view to see better where we're going. And what we're going to do is push back right onto this yellow taxi center line back here. Using that tiller to just line ourselves up here, and that's it. Reverses retracted, and we're just going to taxi out here since we've completed our taxi check. See ya, ground crew. So that's really neat. That's how you do a power back in the MD-80, and I should have started my clock earlier. Oh well, I'll start it now. So now we're going to taxi up here onto Golf, then Kilo to hold short of runway 33. Okay, we're going to hold short here and do our lineup check. Lineup check.
Lineup check. Cabin.
Secured.
Windows.
Left side closed.
Right side closed. Annunciator panel.
Checked.
Ignition.
Set to A.
Air condition supply.
Auto.
Set. Transponder set to TARA. Takeoff clearance.
Received.
Lineup check completed.
Okay, let's go ahead and get my landing lights on, and we'll get moving here. We're just getting live ATC set up so we have some ambiance in the background since I'm not flying on VATSIM here. Okay, we're going to line up on 3-3 and then take off via the Anchorage 9 departure. And something I forgot to do, actually, which I was just looking up, make sure to set my heading bug to 301, which is the heading that we're going to be turning to after we get about 600 feet here on runway heading for the Anchorage 9 departure. Ready.
Ready. Timing.
Okay, I'm going to line up here and stop. Now, one other thing I want to note about the PMS system here. You're going to note that despite it being set up to provide vertical guidance up to flight level 280, whatever altitude that I arm in my mode control panel altitude window here, whatever altitude I arm in there, it is going to respect that limit and treat it as our level off point. So if I go into PERF climb mode on our climb like we will, you will see that it will respect that restriction and stop us there. And I'm going to show you how we can continue our climb in perf mode once we get to that restriction of 4,000 feet. So we're going to level off at 4,000, and then I'll show you how we can continue climbing up to flight level 280. I'm going to advance our throttles up to 1.4 EPR, and then we'll turn our auto throttle on. .4, auto throttle on, takeoff. Takeoff.
Takeoff. Clamp. Takeoff power set.
Checked.
80 knots.
Checked.
V1. Rotate. V2. Positive rate.
Gear up.
Gear up selected. Gear is up.
Engage heading select.
Heading select engage.
We're past 600 feet. I'm going to turn left here to a heading of 301 as per the Anchorage 9 departure instructions. Passing 1500, I'm going to set climb power. Select climb power.
Climb power set.
Engage VNAV.
VNAV is engaged.
Now, what that does is actually activate our perf climb mode. There's no VNAV when you're using the Marconi CMA-900 and PMS system, of course, but FS2 Crew hasn't been modified yet to account for that difference. Autopilot on.
Autopilot on.
Flaps up. Since we're past our flaps or track speed there, which is at around 160, 161. I'm going to turn on my weather radar. I should have done that earlier.
Flaps are up.
Slats retract. Past our slats retraction speed, and I'm going to get our landing lights retracted as well. Slats retracted. I'm going to call for a climb check. Climb check. And move the seatbelt switch to auto.
Stabilizer motion.
Now, you'll see, as I said, the PMS is respecting that 4,000-foot altitude selection that I have in our mode control panel altitude window. So I've transitioned from perf climb mode to perf cruise mode. And it's going to maintain us at 4,000 feet plus or minus 100 feet until I instruct it to climb higher. So how do I instruct it to climb higher? Well, I'm going to do this. I am going to go up to our mode control panel first. I'm going to roll our altitude selector up to flight level 280. And then I'm going to come down here, and you'll see the little 1 button is lit up. So I just press on that 1 button, and that instructs the performance management system to continue our climb to flight level 280. So now our mode control, or sorry, our mode has switched back to perf climb. So that's how you would continue a climb if you had some altitude restrictions on your SID, or if ATC has given you a initial level off altitude that you have to meet. Okay, now we're going to be vector direct to the Big Lake VOR, so I'm going to proceed direct Big Lake by clicking on BGQ here, and then clicking where it says vector to replace vector, go direct to BGQ, and click on execute. And then I'm going to go to nav mode there. And there we go, nav track. Okay, so now we're proceeding direct BGQ, Big Lake VOR, and we're climbing to flight level 280. And you see the PMS there says climb optimum mode, so we're climbing at 250 knots below 10,000 feet. And it says there, about 10,000 feet, we're going to climb at auto. Climb check.
Climb check is coming.
About 10,000 feet, we're going to be climbing at 310 knots. And what it says there is that we have about 5 nautical miles, 1 minute to go before we reach that first vertical waypoint of 10,000 feet. And then it'll give me my top of climb, estimated distance, and ETA once we get past 10,000 for flight level 280. Auto.
Climb check.
Okay, there we go. We're through 10,000. You can see we're accelerating up to 310 knots. And now our display in line 3 here, right next to button 3 there, is changed to show top of climb star, flight level 280. 64 nautical miles to go to top of climb, and 11 minutes to go to top of climb. And it also shows the commanded climb EPR limit of 1.97 there, which is correct. That is what is showing up here in our engine instruments. So pretty cool. I mean, it's not very sophisticated. It's certainly not as sophisticated as the Honeywell system, but it still works. You know, it's one of these quirky, as all things MD-80, it's just one of these really quirky MD-80 things. So neat. We're just going to let it continue our climb here. To go to transition altitude at flight level 180. Transition. Passing flight level 183. Now. Okay, I'm going to mute FS2 crew there, or press the mute button on FS2 crew so he doesn't accidentally pick up instructions I'm not giving him. Really nice evening here. Love how the clouds are all lit up pink by the setting sun, which we can't quite see yet, but it's behind those clouds there to the west. All right, let's pop back here in the cockpit. I'm going to show you how to set up our bottom of descent point to be more accurately what we want it. So what I want to do is cross CLAX, or this waypoint SILAX, which is the initial approach fix for, or the initial fix for our ILS-02 left approach into Fairbanks. What I want to do is cross SILAX at 4,000 feet. So, in order to calculate our bottom of descent point and put that into our performance management system, what I'm going to do is go to our progress page here. Actually, I need to go first to FMS2, then go to progress page. And I want to go to page 3, where it says RTA progress page 3 out of 4. And I'm going to put in SILAX as the RTA waypoint. Where's the X button? There it is. And you see where it says distance 168 nautical miles. So that's where we want our bottom of descent to be. And we can put in our desired speed at the bottom of descent, as well as our the altitude we wish to cross this bottom of descent point as. So let's go ahead and set that up here. I'm going to go to the plan page there and click on button 3 right next to bottom of descent. And now we're in the waypoint bottom of descent star page here. And what this lets me do is put in information like the speed that I want to cross this bottom descent point at. I'm going to put in 210 and then click button 2 to say I want to cross this at 210 knots. And then I'm going to put in a distance that's a bit less than this to make sure we meet that 4,000 foot crossing altitude that we desire. So I'm going to put in 155, and I'm going to put in 4,000. 155/4,000. And then I'm going to click on button 3 there. And you see how it says BOD 155/alt 4,000. That means it's now accepted that. Okay, I'm going to go back now to our climb page. 17 miles or 16 miles to go to top of climb, 3 minutes to go. Once we get to cruise, and I set cruise power in our TRP, this should automatically switch to the cruise page. But that's it. So now what we've done is prime the pump in the PMS system so that it can start calculating when to initiate our top of descent. There's a few more things we need to do to actually make it switch from perf cruise to perf descent, but we'll take it as those steps come. Okay, we're fully broken out of the clouds here, it looks like. You can see the beautiful sunset here in Alaska. And that's really beautiful. You can see the peak of Denali, which is the highest mountain in North America, peeking up there out of the top of the clouds. And moonrise right next to Denali there too, which is really cool. You can see the crescent moon there rising right over the clouds, right next to Denali. That's very, very cool. That is really beautiful. Now, if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend watching Kent Vian's amazing video on YouTube, which I think has well over 1 million views, where he talks about all the quirks of the MD-80 and why he loves flying the MD-80 so much. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of those quirks as we do our cruise here. First, let me go ahead and set cruise power. Select cruise power. Set cruise power. There we go. Cruise power is set on our TRP here. We switched into perf cruise mode. And coming back to Kent Vian's video. So first thing you'll notice right off the bat, of course, is that our PMS system is changed to cruise optimum. And it shows our optimum command and cruise Mach number of Mach 0.716. That's correct. That's what it's showing on the Mach window here on our airspeed indicator. And it shows our top of descent point, which will be reached in about 60 nautical miles and 8 minutes. Now, one thing you'll note, which is really, really strange, is one of these goofy, quirky things about the PMS system in the MD-80, is we're not actually maintaining our altitude at perfectly at flight level 280. We're actually going up and down slightly. Now, why is that? Because the PMS system is trying to use a constant thrust setting to maintain a constant Mach setting. And the way it's doing that is taking advantage of the only other variable that's available to it, and that's by slightly varying the altitude up and down. So you can actually go up plus 100 feet and go down minus 100 feet within the range of that, or within that altitude that you've selected. So with flight level 280, it can go all the way up to flight level 281 or down to flight level 279er. If I keep this in perf mode and try to use that to maintain altitude. Now, since I'm flying at flight level 280, I'm actually 1,000 feet below the lowest RVSM flight level. So RVSM, if you don't know, stands for Reduced Visual Separation Minima, which reminds me I should be switching my TCAS tilt selector here down to below since we're cruising. But RVSM stands for Reduced Visual Separation Minima, and it's a block of flight levels between flight level 290 and flight level 410, where air traffic control can separate traffic going in opposite directions by as little as 1,000 feet vertically. And if you think about that, it's absolutely crazy, right? Because you have traffic going head-on in opposite directions. Each of them may be going about Mach 0.8, so your closing speed is basically well over the speed of sound at Mach 1.6 or Mach 1.7. It's absolutely nuts, but the disadvantage of the PERF cruise mode here, of course, is if your altitude is wearing plus or minus 100 feet and you're in RVSM flight levels, about flight level 290, the RVSM undershoot-overshoot limits are plus or minus 150 feet. And 100 feet is cutting it really, really close. So in practice, most flight crews that operate the MD-80 usually just switch to the altitude hold mode when they reach their cruising altitude. And then they switch back to PERF cruise and then PERF descent as they're coming up on their top of descent point. Now, one of the things you'll see is as we get about 5 minutes or so from our top of descent, and that's where we are at the moment, what I'm going to do now is roll our altitude selector down to 4,000, which is the altitude that we want to cross our Silax intersection at. And you see where it says descend optimum, flight level 280, descend now. I want to go back to our plan page. Actually, let's just go back to our cruise page. The aircraft should automatically go into plan page when it reaches exactly 5 minutes from our top of descent. So we'll see that happen in a second. Okay, you see where it says distance to bot showing up on our little message window up here. What I want to do is press the clear button to clear that. And now I've gone into my descent page, and you'll see that the 1 button on my PMS is lit up. What I want to do is press that 1 button. And now what I've done is prime the pump here so that our aircraft will automatically switch from PERF cruise mode to PERF descent mode once I reach the calculated top of descent point, which is at about 30 nautical miles and 4 minutes away from now. So everything is set up now in our PMS to automatically initiate our descent at the top of descent point. So pretty cool. Again, really, really quirky. You know, it's so goofy, the system. Okay, so everything's set up there. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is start doing our approach brief and set everything up for our descent here in Fairbanks, Alaska. Okay, I'm going to set up our ILS frequency here, 109.1 for the ILS 02 left. And I should also remember to get my weather. Final approach course is 020. Okay, let me go back here to our ACARS system. And I'm going to print out my weather. ATIS, and let's do Papa Alpha Foxtrot Alpha for Fairbanks. We'll go to Arrival ATIS and press the send button. We'll go back to menu here and go to FMS2 and go back to our progress page. And I'm going to go back to page 3 here because I want to keep an eye on this distance to Silax and kind of compare that to our bottom of descent point as we get close to our close to descending, so that I can keep track of how well the aircraft is doing, matching the descent profile that I'm seeking. Okay, but anyway, I just got my weather information here for Fairbanks, so let's go ahead and do our approach brief. Oh, actually, one last thing to do, of course, is set up our landing data. Let's look here, our landing data card. VREF is going to be 138 for a flaps 40 landing, and winds are less than 5 knots at Fairbanks, so we can use VREF plus 5 of 143. Okay, I've set up our speed bucks here for a VREF, for a flaps 40 landing at Fairbanks. Okay, let's go ahead and do our approach brief here. Are you ready for the approach brief?
I'm ready.
Okay, the weather information at Fairbanks, wind 060 at 4 knots. Visibility 10 statute miles, ceiling was broken at 3,500 and overcast at 6,000. Temperature is -2 and dew point is -6. We might need to use anti-ice and being an engine anti-ice on the descent through those clouds potentially, so we'll keep an eye on our ice spot detectors or indicators. And our altimeter setting for Fairbanks is 2985. We're going to be arriving via the Liber 3 arrival into Fairbanks this evening. So let's go ahead and brief that star real quick. Actually, before I brief the arrival and the approach plate for ILS-2 left, let's really quickly watch what happens here with the PMS system, since we're less than a minute and only 3 nautical miles away from our top of descent point. As soon as that top of descent point goes to 0 nautical miles, you're going to see PERF CRZ go into PERF descent here on our FMGS. Okay, so let's watch that. It's gone down to 0 at this point. There we go. So we've gone into PERF descent mode. You can see the thrust levers coming back to idle. And what it's going to do now is descend at Mach 0.75 until we hit 290 knots. And we can no longer use Mach number for descent at flight idle until we get to our computed 250 knot, 10,000 foot altitude restriction vertical waypoint, which you'll be reaching about 46 nautical miles and 8 minutes from now. And once we get past that, then the bottom of descent will switch to Silax at 4,000 feet, which we calculated earlier. And you see where it says DR there? That's essentially almost like dead reckoning at this point. So that's why you see CDU message showing up here under our mode display panel there. So very interesting, very goofy, very quirky system. Okay, we'll continue our descent here, and let's continue our approach brief real quick. Okay, so Liber 3 arrival into Fairbanks. We're tracking direct to Liber at the moment, but Cabin at or above 12,000, Liber at or above 8,900, then Glows at or above 7,100, Arsa at or above 5,000, then Silax at or above 4,100, but we're going to plan for 4,000. And Silax is going to be our initial fix for the ILS-2 left. So let's brief the ILS-2 left approach plate real quick. Okay, ILS runway 2 left. Localizer frequency India Charlie November Alpha is 109.1. Final approach course 020. Final approach fix cache will be crossed at 2,100 feet. We're going to assume a Cat 1 approach today. Decision height is going to be, decision altitude for a Cat 1 is going to be 639 feet with a runway visual range of 1,800 feet or half a statute mile. Airport elevation is 439 feet. The minimum safe altitude within 25 nautical miles of the Fairbanks VOR is 4,500 feet. If you need to go mist, I'm going to call for go around power, flaps 15, then press the toga button. And for the mist approach procedure, we're going to climb on runway heading to 900 feet, then a climbing right turn to 5,000 feet on heading 170, and outbound on the Fairbanks radial 107 to Crinkle, which is at DME 13.0 from the Fairbanks VOR, and hold there. And if we need to, we're going to continue the climb and hold to 5,000 feet. And we're going to be doing a flaps 40 land today with WEREF of 138, approach speed of 143, and auto brake setting of medium. Once we land on runway 2 left, we're going to exit on, quite likely on Mike, if not Bravo, but quite likely on Mike, and then taxi via Alpha to the terminal building. And that's it for the approach brief. Any questions?
Captain, you're in auto land today?
No.
Check.
No.
Check.
No.
For 11,000 for 200,
descent checklist. Checked. Performed. Set. Okay, we're coming up in our transition altitude here. And of course, winter starts early up here in the Alaskan interior, so you can see snow on the ground. They've had some low temperatures of snow already in October, and things will really start cooling down in November again. Okay, through a transition altitude. Transition. 2985. Altimeters 2985. Passing 17,000 feet. Now.
Check. 320, any chance check, no attack, NDB this morning, on 1782.
I'm going to roll our speed selector up here to 210 knots, just to be on the safe side for when I reach Silax. Okay, while that's going on, let's talk a little bit about the quirks and the goofy things in the MD-80 as Kent Wien pointed out in that video. And I'm going to post a link to that video, by the way, in the description below on YouTube. So I strongly recommend you checking that out if you haven't seen it before. It's really enlightening if you want to learn more about this amazing aircraft. So one of the first quirky things you'll notice, of course, is this cockpit side window here, which can be open when you're on the ground. Of course, you don't want to open it in flight because you can risk a depressurization, or worse, of course, you can get sucked out of the airplane. But you'll notice the mechanism, the handle mechanism to actually open the cockpit side window looks like something out of the space program in the 60s. In fact, it is. This is an almost perfect copy of the hatch opening mechanism from the Mercury space capsule from way back in the early 1960s. So that's cool. And of course, this knob here, as Kent Wien points out, is straight off the throttle knob of the DC-3 from way back in the 30s. So that's insane. And of course, another interesting thing about a really quirky thing about the MD-80 are these two mirrors up here. So if you notice, unlike the 737, which has a compass hanging from the top there, or the Airbus A320, which has the compass in a hidden recess that's located in the overhead panel, that you can lower that compartment that's recessed in the overhead and access the magnetic compass for the A320. Here in the MD-80, the compass seems to be nowhere to be found. So where the heck is it, right? Well, it's actually up here. Unfortunately, so this is one of the only things I don't like about the Leonardo FlytheMaddog model, which is otherwise fantastically rendered in all its beautiful little details and quirks. But the one thing that's not modeled is this magnetic compass that's actually located in this orange recess back here. So there's a window, and then the compass is actually oriented in mirror reverse so that you can see it from your seat here by flipping up these little mirrors and orienting the mirrors so that you can see that compass behind you. And that way, you know, if you're heading AHRS here, heading indicator gets out of alignment, or the slave is not working, slave function is not working anymore, that way you can use these mirrors to look at the magnetic compass and then align your heading indicator. Absolutely goofy, absolutely quirky, as Kent Wien points out, but hey, it's there. And kudos to Leonardo for at least including the little animations of these mirrors flipping up if they didn't actually model the compass and the reflection of the compass itself. Really weird, really quirky. And we're coming up on 10,000 feet here, and you can see our PMS system has reduced our speed to 215 knots. And now our new bottom of descent point, the next vertical waypoint, is Silax, which will be crossed at 4,000 feet in about 15 nautical miles or so. And that looks about right. You know, I want to reach 4,000 feet slightly before I get to Silax. So Silax is 18 nautical miles from here, and the bottom of descent point is going to be 13 nautical miles. So that's pretty good. I like that it did that. Let's do our approach check here. Approach check. Approach check.
Approach check. Navigation.
Set ILS. Set. Set.
Approach check.
Set ILS on nav 2.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to make sure my decision altitude selector is set up here on our altitude
Cabin, galley.
instrument. 639. That looks about right. Thanks. HSI scale changing. Gonna clear that message. Not quite sure what that means, to be honest. To study up on the manual here to understand that. But anyway, continue our descent here to 4,000 feet, at which point we'll intercept the ILS 02 left at Fairbanks. Another quirky feature of the MD-80 that Kent Bean points out, of course, is this little moving black wheel here that has these yellow widgets on it. This is actually your outflow valve indicator, and the way it's moving directly reflects the way the outflow valve is positioned on the exterior of the airplane. And this is not something that you see very often in other aircraft of a similar vintage, like the Airbus or the Boeings. So that's pretty quirky, and of course this little handle here with the yellow knob.
340 set.
What did he just do? I need to make sure I mute him. So this handle here with the yellow knob allows you to move your outflow valve control from automatic to manual, and that's something you can use in case you have either a pressurization system failure, the automatic pressurization system failure, in which case you can control the pressurization manually, or if you're on the ground and you need to de-ice the airplane, you need to move this to manual and move the pressurization outflow valve fully forward to close it in order to de-ice the airplanes. And so again, one of these really quirky things that you don't find on the Boeings or the Airbuses. This is one of those aircraft that remind you they just don't make them the way they used to back in the day. The MD-80, of course, is a direct descendant of the DC-9 family of aircraft. I'm going to make sure I activate my altitude mode there. And we're leveling off here at 4,000 feet, so I'm going to switch to altitude hold mode. And I'm going to reduce speed here to 210 knots. And I'm going to arm my ILS. You can see the ILS indications coming alive, localizer and glide slope indications coming alive here on our attitude indicator. I'm going to call for slots extend.
Okay, over to approach 1186, Chino 01.
Slots extend.
Speed check.
That way I can go below my alpha speed restriction down to 210 knots. And we're about 16 DME here, so I'm going to reduce speed to 200 knots.
Approach,
Flaps 11.
01's with you at 13,000.
Speed check. Flaps 11.
Going to turn on my landing lights. Localizer capture.
Check.
Another thing that Leonardo claims was supposedly improved in this 1.5 B493 version of the Leonardo FlytheMaddog was the localizer capture logic. It doesn't seem to be hunting around for it as much as it did in the previous version, so that's good news, but can't tell how much of an improvement it is yet. In the previous version, especially the further away you were from the localizer when you try to capture it, the more it seemed to be sort of heat-seeking for the localizer course. But it seems okay. Glide slope capture. Glide slope capture.
340 for now.
Okay. We're on glide slope here. 10 nautical miles out. I'm going to reduce speed to 180 knots. Flaps 15.
Speed check.
And approach speed is going to be 143. You can see the lights from the city of Fairbanks up ahead. Fairbanks, of course, is a city that started almost entirely as a result of the Alaskan gold rush back in the 1900s. And if you visit it today, preferably in the warmer months, of course, in the summer, there's opportunities to go panhandling or panning for gold, not panhandling, of course, but panning for gold in some of the streams. I think there's some tour operations that do that out here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reduce our speed to approach speed here. Gear down.
Morning, transfer the 1.2, 9,000.
Gear down.
Landing 17,000, direct way back.
Gear down. Now you have the ability with the MD-80, as Kent Bean was pointing out, because those flaps can be extended at far higher speeds than you can with the Airbus or the Boeing. You have the ability to get to the outer marker at around 210, 200 knots, and then just drop your flaps and slow down in a hurry to your final approach speed. So that's pretty cool. Flaps 28.
Speed check. Flaps 28.
I will be looking to get one.
Flaps 40.
Speed check.
1,000.
Stabilizer motion.
Flaps 40. Set.
Final check.
Final check. Gear. 500 above.
Down.
Ignition.
Set to B.
Check. Auto spoilers. Auto brakes.
Armed.
Check. Flaps and slats.
Flaps 40, land.
Check.
500.
And that's your cameras. Check.
Autopilot.
Clearance.
Received.
Check. Final check complete.
Okay, I've taken it off autopilot. Manual control now.
400.
Really nice night here in Fairbanks. Thankfully, no snow or anything like that.
Approaching minimum.
300. Terrain.
Minimum.
200.
Wonder why I got that terrain alert there.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Spoilers deployed. 4 reverse lights.
And we're going to exit to the left up here on Mike if we can. Okay, we'll turn left here on Mike. I'm going to get my landing lights off. Taxi lights to dim, or nose lights to dim. which is the taxi position. Speed brake has been retracted. I'm going to turn off my weather radar and call for the after landing check. After landing check.
After landing check.
And we'll taxi into gate 1 here. Call for GSX here. Go to gate, and let's do gate 1. And I don't know why United is the carrier of choice here in Fairbanks as per GSX, but hey, that's GSX for you. It makes little sense, even though the creator GSX believes it does.
After landing check, completed.
Just gotta live with the quirks. Although those quirks from GSX are a lot less lovable than the quirks from from the MD-80 for sure. Flaps and slats. I'm gonna turn on my lights, turn off my lights here as I turn into the gate. Gate 1 up ahead.
Flaps and slats retracted.
And I don't trust my GSX marshaller here, so I'm gonna just gonna monitor this using external view. All the way up here, and we'll stop there. Okay, let's go put our parking brake on. Check that our APU is on the buses, which it is. Reset our aircars message. And we'll go ahead and move our fuel levers to off to shut down both engines. There we go. And I'm going to turn off my seat belt here. Parking check.
Stand by.
And he's going to go through his after shutdown flows. I'm going to call for the
From ground.
go ahead.
Chocks are in. Y'all can release the parking brakes now.
I'm going to go call for deboarding here.
Parking check, parking brakes.
Set.
Flaps, slats.
Retracted.
APU external power.
Established.
Fuel levers.
Off.
Anti-collision off. Hydraulic pumps off. Seatbelt switch.
Set. Off.
Ice protection panel.
Set. Checked.
Transponder standby. Parking checklist complete.
Okay, parking checklist complete. Okay, so that was a really interesting experience using the Canadian Marconi CMA-900 and performance management, or PMS system. Okay, folks, hey, thanks for watching. I hope this was an interesting video for you on the use of the Marconi CMA-900 and the performance management system, and as well an interesting look at the quirks of the MD-80. Once again, I strongly recommend, if you like this aircraft and you haven't watched Kent Behan's amazing YouTube video on all the quirks in the MD-80, I'd strongly recommend watching that. I'm going to post a link to it in the description below. And as always, any comments, thoughts, questions, suggestions, please feel free to post those in the YouTube comment sections below. If you like this video and like this content, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. And thanks again for joining me on this trip. I'll look forward to seeing you again on a future trip. Suggestions for future destinations and aircraft to fly are always, as well, highly appreciated. All right, y'all, you take care. Have a great night. Bye-bye.